Hello and welcome back to Mask of the Plague Doctor by Peter Parrish with me, Borden. Right, let's make haste to the tavern. The wooden sign creaks in the breeze above your head. You stare at the painted image, trying to figure out what the artist was trying to portray. The poor antlered creature in the centre of the composition is, with some charitable interpretation, a stag. It also seems fair to assume that the crude brushstrokes made just above the animal's hooves represent the eponymous shackles. But beyond these points of recognition, you are at a loss. The stag may be roaring in triumph, free at last of its bonds, or, just as plausible, is braying in misery or discomfort. Perhaps, like you, it is caught in the throes of confusion. Right, masks off, Ayoko says, thwarting any further efforts at overcoming this artistic riddle. We won't be learning any dirty secrets about the quarantine if we go in there representing as physicians. You remove your wolf mask, storing it on your belt beneath the folds of your robes. Your colleagues follow suit, stashing their own animal visages about their person. As Alice puts hers away, you notice she has what appears to be a metal cage fastened to a loop of her belt by a hinged handle. Candle lantern, she says, noting your interest in giving it a pat. Can't read when there's no light. Ayoko's stern cough draws your attention back to him. I'll keep an eye on the perimeter, he says, making a circular motion with a raised finger. You two see what you can learn inside. Shout if you need me. I won't roam far. Alice gestures for you to head inside first. You're pushing a door that threatens to depart from its weathered hinges like a bone parting from torn ligament. It somehow holds firm and swings open. An object spins past your right ear. An explosion of shattering glass rains down from the oaken walls. Swine! I'll end you! Shouts a woman in black and green patch robe. Lunging at a shorter man with a crooked nose, she collides against him, bundling him against the wooden fronting of the bar with a gruesome crunch. Behind the same bar, flanked on either side by tankards, goblets and barrels, a scarred man creases in laughter at the spectacle. The woman aims a kick at the shorter man's sternum, expels a weighty gob of spit and storms out. Her robe brushes against your own as you and Alice move quickly aside. Groans arise from the base of the bar. The rest of the tavern's lower room is sparsely inhabited. At the only full table, 4 patrons are engaged in a game you vaguely recognise. In a corner, a pair of hooded figures are wrapped in discussion. You spy weapons at their sides. Nobody has flinched at the violence in their midst. What's your pleasure? The scarred man calls over, ignoring the pained whimpers. Okay, so we don't really want to betray ourselves as a surgeon, so we're not going to help the guy. The game table, we said that we only vaguely recognise this, so it's probably not a good idea either. Approaching the hooded figures is probably going to get us shot or stabbed. So we'll have a chat with the barman. That depends, you say, walking over. What do you serve? The man motions behind him. Dregs of mead, some red vinegar, masquerading as wine. Might be able to dredge up a bucket of brown water if you're really lucky. Used to serve a decent dish of lamb, but that all stopped when this bloody plague hit. Appealing as that sounds, I believe I'll go without, you say, watching Alice stoop down to attend to the man lying against the foot of the bar. Unless you've any information for me. The bartender wrinkles his brow, bunching up some of the narrow scars on his forehead. What kind of information? Just curious. What type of person visited a tavern during the plague quarantine? Someone very lonely, or with very specific business. He waves a hairy hand in the direction of the gaming table. Those 4 old farts haven't missed a day since I started running the place. The hand moves over to point at the hooded figures in the corner. That lot of a room rented upstairs. I'd steer clear of it if I were you. And him? You ask, tilting your head towards your ongoing groans. Dunno, family dispute, I think. See much trouble in here? You ask, trying to stare too hard at the scars. Or trying not to stare too hard at the scars. The barman laughs, touching a finger to his face. Plenty, but these I got in a life and death struggle. Angry mercenary, a grieved drunkard. He shakes his head. Cat? Cat? Thoroughly pissed off cat? The barman pauses, seeming to size you up. You know, if you're willing to tangle with a wild beast, Moonbeam's still around in here, somewhere. Coax her out, and I might just have some information of real value. Moonbeam? You say, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, Moonbeam. He points to his chest. Heart of a poet, right here. Cat retrieval just became my specialty. I'll find Moonbeam. Why not, right? Where did you last see her? You ask. The barman's face contorts into something approaching joy. Well, it was hard to say where she went with all the blood in my eyes, he says. But I hear noises at night coming from under the stairs. Saw some pieces of mouse strewn around near there too. That's either the cat or one strange deity, you reply. One of the hooded characters looks your way as you crouch down by the tavern staircase, then appears to lose interest. As you lean forward for a closer inspection of the area, something crunches beneath your knee. A tiny fragment of bone confirms at least one mouse casualty in the area. Peering into the gloomy corner, you can just about make out a gap in the wooden boards lining the side of the stairs. The space inside is most likely hollow. It may even give this elusive beast access to the insides of the walls. Reaching inside your robes, you pull out a medicinal pouch and sprinkle some of its contents on the floor by the opening. Napata Cataria, most often used for soothing a fever or easing aching joints, but many refer to it by another name, catswort. Satisfied that the bait is set, you sit back against the nearest wall. Across the room, you watch Alice try to help the injured man to his feet. He winces in discomfort and leans against the bar. You look back at the empty gap and settle in for a wait. The games table has completed several rounds before you hear the tip-tap of claws against wood. A pink nose, followed by a grey face, streaked with white, emerges from under the stairs. You hold your breath as the rest of Moonbeam appears and pads with caution towards the catswort. She pushes her nose close, sniffs, then withdraws, only to return again, damp nostrils still twitching. With languid grace, she flops against the pile of scattered herbs and begins rubbing her body against the floor. You inch yourself forward, seeing her head flick up as the boards creak beneath your weight. Extending your arm, you try to dangle the drawstring of one of your leather pouches above Moonbeam's head. She squirms and bats at it with a white paw. Moving closer still, you reach out with your other hand, offering it for her to sniff. Her nose twitches again. Then she growls, her ears push back, and she launches herself at your head. Good job, you're tough. You're prepared for this eventuality. Moonbeam collides with the leather robes over your forearm. As you bring it up to protect your face, she lands in a mess of scrambling legs and hisses at you. Taking what may be your one and only chance, you grab her by the scruff and hold her, riding and furious aloft. With your other hand, you do your best to fashion a half pouch out of your robes, lifting them upward at the helm. Unable to keep hold of her much longer, you deposit Moonbeam inside the snug pocket, preventing her from thrashing around by pressing the folds of your robes tight. The cat is secure. You return to the barman in triumph. A battle for the bards, he says with a nod of respect. She seems to like you. The wriggling has subsided. Moonbeam seems content to reside within your robes. You stroke the top of her head. She nudges back against your knuckles. So, what have you heard? You ask. Right, he says, gesturing for you to lean closer. The cat hops out onto the bar as you put your ear near the man's cupped hand. If you're looking to get out of town, there's a man upstairs who can point the way. Second door on the left. He straightens back up and coughs in a rather too conspicuous manner. You didn't hear that from me. Okay, let's take the stairs. With Alice in tow, you climb the tavern stairs. The upper floor of the Shackled Stag is a narrow corridor with a pair of doors to either side. Loud, intermittent snoring can be heard behind the fourth door to the right. The harsh sound, often so irritating, instead gives you an odd sense of reassurance. The person is consumed by slumber, free of the waking death. You feel Alice's hand on your back and realise you pause to listen to the staccato grunts. Roused from your thoughts, you take the next few paces to the second door on the left. Opting for caution, you place your ear to the surface of the wood, trying to listen for any clues as to what or who awaits. Nothing drifts through, save for the snoring farther down the hall. You knock and wait. There is no reply. You look over your shoulder at your colleague. She motions with her hand for you to try the door. Nodding, you apply some weight and are surprised to feel it give. A freshening smell wafts through the cracked entrance. You hold your sleeve to your nose and mouth and enter. The source is not too difficult to identify. Slumped in a chair with his eyes wide, the deceased man with heavy jowls and a stain around his crotch. The low ceiling makes you stoop. Out of a simple desire to feel far enough away, an unmade bed, barely wide enough for a child, is squeezed up against a miniature desk. Its surface is buried beneath fragments of parchment. The aroma of urine is pervasive. So this was the big lead, Alice says, grimacing as she tries to get around you to inspect the body. Careful, you say. We don't know what killed him. I think we do, she replies, pointing to a scattering of dried plant matter on the floorboards. That looks like henbane, and that... She gestures at the dead man. Looks like a victim of too much henbane. Fantastic. So, besides letting the barman know he should hail the corpse cart, what do we do now? You think back to the hooded figures, engrossed in heated debate and eyeing the stairs. It'd be wise to move fast. Let's see, look for clues about his accomplice, search for anything indicating a related location in town, check the man's pouches and pockets for incriminating evidence, decide to salvage the henbane for my own purpose. Let's go for a related location in town. You delve into the bagged straw that serves as this bed's mattress, dislodging a spider from its webbed home. The coarse stuffing scratches against your hands. Rummaging towards the bottom proves fruitless, but closer at the top, your knuckles brush against a different texture. You twist your arm to reach farther, grasping the object and pulling it free. The piece of vellum is folded and stained. There's a distinct smell of sweat. As you open it up, you realize that it is a sketch map. The lines of alleyways and streets denote simple marks and scrawls. Got something? Alice asks. I think this is the old quarter, you say, tracing your fingers over the shapes. And here, the tannery. There's a mark by Ginnell Street. Alice. It has streets beneath the others. It looks like a set of tunnels. Struck by a thought, you dig out the piece of parchment from your counter outside the Mayor's Manor. Side by side, the marked locations appear to be in a similar position. He concealed that for a reason, Alice says. Better make this Ginnell Street our next destination. We're getting close. Stopping only to tell a thoroughly unamused barkeep about his deceased occupant and the dangers of henbane, you head outside to find Ayoko and share this information. Let's hurry to the marked location. The three of you keep a quick pace as you follow the scratched lines on the discovered parchment. The scale of the drawn map is inconsistent, as if created in haste, but it appears to be pointing to an area beneath the northeastern reaches of the Old Quarter and south of the tannery. "Hold on," you say, bringing the group to a halt by a diverging pair of streets. You hold the piece of parchment up to the afternoon light, squinting at the faded marks that you can only assume denote buildings and passageways. "While we're taking a pause," Ayoko says, kicking his boots together to dislodge some dried mud, "perhaps we can settle on some kind of plan." "What do you mean?" you ask. "Say we find these tunnels, what then? If there are guards working for the mayor, do we confront them? Don't they even have a light source between us?" "We do, actually," Alice says, producing a lantern. The simple metal cage is intended to house small candles. As your colleague holds it aloft by the hinge handle, you see that it presently holds an unlit one. "Splendid," Ayoko replies. "Now we can fumble our way around in whatever damp, dangerous system of caves exists under this awful place until we run out of wax and wick." "Glad to help," Alice says, ignoring his tone. "But I must admit, it would be a comfort if we had a clearer approach here." You look up from the map. "Our aim is to prevent the infection spreading beyond Thornback Hollow by any means, to clear up these rumours about the bear and seal any breach of quarantine. We'll prove without a doubt that Mayor Sybil Blake is a danger to the town and the realm, surviving long enough to have this same discussion ahead of our next crisis." "We'll prove without a doubt that Mayor Sybil Blake is a danger to the town and the realm." No, that's not. It's got to be one of these two. I don't like this one though, because it sounds like we're taking the side of the mayor, and we don't want to do that. So then it's got to be this one. "Our aim is to prevent the infection spreading beyond Thornback Hollow by any means." "Any means, Gamel?" Alice remarks. "Anything we can reasonably..." You pause mid-sentence and sigh. "Look, none of us have any idea what we'll find, so trying to form a detailed plan is hopeless. Our duty is to prevent the spread of the waking death. That is what we will attempt to do." "Straightforward enough," Ayoko says. "Let's hope circumstance doesn't step in to overcomplicate matters." Confident that you've identified the correct street, you fold the parchment back up and point to the right-hand track, curling its way down a gentle slope towards the tannery and timber yards. You hear the swishing of well-worn leather robes as your colleagues find their stride and follow your lead. Minutes later, it is another sound that finds its way to your ear, distant at first but unmistakable as you move down the road. Raised voices, a commotion. What's happening here? You see the sashes first, a declaration in red, slung around a malnourished waist, worn like bandages around fists thrust to the sky. The crowd of people fills the street ahead, chanting in protest. As you look, more spill from doorways and alleys, joining the throng. At their head you recognise a woman you encountered at the tannery, Male. By her side stands Tace, a full head taller than her companion. "Seems we should find a different route," Ayoko says. "This one's hosting a guild meeting." Producing the map, you try to figure out a way around the rally. It looks possible, but the amount of backtracking would cause a significant delay. "No time," you reply. "We're going through." "They might have a different opinion," says Alice, pointing to the women advancing your way. Well, says Mally, tucking her thumbs into a threadbare belt. "What brings the mass agents of the Crown to this part of town?" She casts an appraising eye over Ayoko. "Haven't seen you before, Tusks." Tace fails to conceal a chuckle. "Happy to have kept it that way," Ayoko deadpans back. "We've urgent medical business," you say, pointing over Malle's head. "Through there." "Too bad. she says, averting her mouth in mock sadness. Streets locked down, and it's staying that way until the mayor calls off her militia dogs. No more pillaging our food, no more imprisonment, no more beatings. Turning, she gestures back towards the crowd. You see some wounded being carried out or supported by others in red sashes. Others, you notice, carry scraps of dark blue. Saw 'em off once, Tay says. They come back, we'll do it again. Street by street if we have to. She makes a shooing motion with her hand. So scurry along, no passage through here. Oh, so Alviva doesn't like us enough for us to choose that one. Okay. They're wounded, look like they could use a surgeon. I offer to treat them. You've injured, you say, gesturing towards a limping young woman near the front of the crowd. If we tend to their needs, will you allow us to pass? Mally considers his offer, glancing back at the wounded. Tilting her head to Mally's ear, Tace adds some whispered comments of her own. Agreed. With conditions, she says. No mistakes. You leave them all in a better state than you found them. I know what you fleems can be like. Behind you, Alison hails with audible annoyance. Done, you reply. You'll have no complaints about our work. Better not. Mally sniffs, motioning for you to accompany her to the massed ranks of people. Up close, the scene is bleaker. The militia attack has left its mark on many. Alongside the superficial cuts and turned ankles, you find people losing blood from deep gouges, cheeks pierced by points of dirty blades, and one unfortunate soul holding half an ear in their hand. You assess the injuries with a balance of haste and care, then begin delegating work to your companions. Pooling what vinegar and alcohol you can from your own supplies and requisitions from the crowd, you assign Alice to disinfect and bandage wounds. Meanwhile, Ayoko tends to those in need of more significant surgical intervention. You do your best to keep spaces in the streets clear for others to work, and lending your skills to those who need various lacerations sewn shut. It takes time and a weary amount of effort, but the three of you manage to patch up every person who presents themselves to you with an injury. Many will be scarred, at least one has a minor amputation, but all are alive. Can't fault you, Mally says in a nod of genuine appreciation. You mended them all. She calls out some instructions and the crowd parts, giving you a narrow path through to the end of the street. Guild won't forget it. Press on to your destination. There's light left in the grey skies as the three of you arrive in Ginnell Street, but a biting cold has you cursing the onset of winter through numbed lips. The location proves to be something of a misnomer, as quirk of local terminology. Rather than a single track or lane, you find a warren of narrow passageways and alleys, weaving and bisecting through rows of low, tight-pressed dwellings. These labyrinthine urban corridors are confusing, and your map is too imprecise to be of use. But they at least offer some shelter from the chill. After wandering their paths for what feels like an age, you found little save for squalor and the unsung struggles of the impoverished. Perhaps we have been duped, Ayako says, leaning himself against the wall of another alleyway. You'd struggle to distinguish from the last. No, you say, sounding surer than you feel in your heart. We'll find something here. Pointing the way, you lead your colleagues through another series of twists and turns till you find yourself rounding a sharp corner. At the other end of the lane, cajoling a huddled man and woman onward, you see a pair of armed men wearing militia colours. They spot you almost as fast. Words are exchanged and the men toss their weapons aside. You hear their footsteps hitting the ground as they vanish into the maze of alleys. Their charges remain in place, holding one another, shivering. Learn what has transpired. The two people shy away from your mask as you approach, but do not run. Once you get closer, the reason for their shivering is clear. Beneath the threadbare robes and simple boots, the clothing is inadequate protection against the bitter cold. Along the path where the two militiamen fled, you see two discarded bundles of possession. Yours? You ask, gesturing to the piles. Are we in trouble? The woman asks, her head bowed, avoiding looking at your mask. Our guides, they were frightened of you. Fina, the man whispers, urging her silence. No, let her speak, Alice says. Guides to what? And why were they afraid of doctors? Fina glances up at you both. You see the ravages of hunger and misery in her shrunken cheeks and ringed eyes. We gave them everything. We were desperate, she says, her voice flat. Gerald had no work. Quarantine cut off all trade. Here, Ayoko says, holding 2 woolen tunics retrieved from the bundles. Put these on. They release one another from the huddled embrace, adding the extra layer to their attire with clumsy, numb fingers. They're ours anyway, Gerald mumbles, his face gaunt. Or they were. Your guides, Alice repeats. Who were they? We met them at a tavern, Fina says, rubbing her own arms for more warmth. The chained stag or... Shackled, Gerald says. We'd heard it could be a way out. Tunnels, you ask? They both nod. Fina motions to a dwelling a few steps away from where you stand. They were directing us in there, she says. Once they'd combed through more of our belongings, Gerald adds, frowning. What were we supposed to do now? Fina asks, holding her head in her hands. Gerald puts a comforting arm around her, but his expression is one of anguish. You realise they will have few options left in town, but with the right tone, you may be able to redirect them to a group of your choosing. Okay. I keep things friendly, explaining they will have to remain in town. I use this as an opportunity to acquire some information and additional labour. That sounds like we could recruit them, so that's what I want to do. Generally, I think in terms of our character, we probably would have done this one or this one. But I don't know if I'm going to get them then as people who can work for us, so let's try this one. I've made some acquaintances in Thornback Hollow, you say. They'll be able to feed you and provide basic lodging, assuming you're willing to work. There's a hesitant look of hope in Fina's eyes as she lowers her hands and looks at you. We're tired, but we can work, she says. If there's a morsel in it for us, we'd be glad to. Happy to hear it, you reply. I can tell you where to go just as soon as you provide us with some information. Gerald frowns at you with distaste. Of course there's a price. Always is. Come now, I don't ask for much. You must have overheard something of interest from your guides. Forget it, he replies. You're all the same. This is probably just more deception. We'll tell you what we know, then you'll show us down some blind alley. I promise you, I do know people. Come on, Fina, we're leaving. With a dazzled look, she pulls a woolen tunic around her. Between them, they begin to check their bundle of belongings. We're allowing them to go, Alice asks, keeping her voice to a whisper. They never left town, you reply quietly. That was their intent, but unless you think they're infected, they're no longer our concern. Standing close, as protection against the cold, the couple give you a silent motion of farewell, make slow, stiff progress down the alleyway. You watch as they turn, then head out of sight. Alice motions towards the dwelling Gerald and Fina had indicated as their destination. I presume the entrance to the tunnels will lie inside, she says. I'm not relishing this task, but we should explore whether there are other points of entry. No use in sealing this one if another will pop up at once. Okay, let's search for the tunnel entrance. The building exhibits no unique properties on its exterior. To your eye, it appears as another dilapidated wooden structure, barely larger than a single-room shack. Just another modest dwelling in a row of many. You lead the way to the door, finding it hanging loose upon simple hinges. The space inside is the same temperature as the alley. Flecks of straw cover the ground, undulating slightly in response to the icy draft being forced through holes in the crooked walls. Beneath the straw, you see the outline of a trapdoor. Cozy, Ayoko says, his breath forming a cloud. Help me clear this off, you say, pointing to the debris covering the hatch. Between the three of you, it takes mere moments to brush aside the dirt stalks. You reach for the rust-dusted hoops of iron beneath, ready to heave open the trapdoor. As your fingers brush the metal, you see flashes of colour. Your vision blurs, and a light sensation tickles your wrists. You try to close your hands around the iron ring, but first your digits locked in place. Find your digits locked in place. The sensation around your wrists starts to squeeze tighter. You feel tiny points of pain, scratching and digging at your flesh. Gasping, you try to pull away. Gamel, are you all right? Alice asks. A pulse of anxious sweat radiates beneath your robes. You find your eyes refocusing on the outline of whiskers and box ears. The tethering pain in your wrist recedes. I believe we should tread with care, you manage, trying to keep your voice level. Be cautious in the strange caves, Ayoko says. Powerful advice, but let's make sure they're actually under here first. Two other pairs of hands join yours around the iron ring. Ready? Alice says. Pull. Together you hoist open the hatch. As the dust settles, you peer over the edge. A set of steps, their surface bowed in the centre by the wear of many footfalls, disappears down into the swallowing darkness. Hold on, Alice says, attending to her lantern. She turns back to you, holding the cage handle near the entrance. It illuminates more steps, heading straight down through earth and rock. No matter how hard you strain your vision, you cannot see where they lead. Sharing a look with your companions, you place your hands on the cold walls and begin the descent. Outside, the first flakes of snow begin to fall, descend beneath the town. Okay, this one is a little shorter, but I think I'm going to end it there because it's kind of a nice stopping point at the start of a new chapter. And what I'm going to do in future is maybe split the chapters into two. So probably just record an entire chapter and then find a nice point to split it and split that in two. Rather than kind of mixing and matching chapters together. So that is the end of that one. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you're keeping safe out there, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button there on the right, or checking out some other videos here on the left, or perhaps you might even share with some friends.